We've all been there before. We drive through any fast food chain, you shout out your order to the oftentimes preoccupied person on the other side of the speaker, and the first thing that they will ask you is, would you like to upsize that? Now, with those 5 words, you're given actually a choice. You can choose the convenient route of actually spending a little extra, but you get a little bit more fries and a lot more soda. Or you can choose to disregard shame, external judgment, and missing out on the potential bang for buck deal by saying no thanks. And who knew ordering fast food would be such a moral dilemma? Well, in reality, this is a metric-backed marketing technique called upselling. Now, upselling is quite literally the technique of selling a much more expensive version of the same product. This accounts for 15 to 40% of McDonald's revenue, which is about $7 billion, a meager $7 billion in 2021. G-Shock, however, is actually upselling their watches also in a similar way. However, instead of being left with a feeling of regret and overall bloatedness, Casio actually manages to make you feel nice about it. Here's how G-Shock has a blueprint for upselling. The first component is audience conditioning. 3 of the flagship models from G-Shock are the GA110, DW5600, and the most recent hit, the GA2100. This can be had easily at under $100 to $130. This has been proven also to be the ideal price range for digital quartz watches. G-Shock offers whole collections with similar designs, but built with better materials and more complicated patterns. This, however, takes a massive price jump of 80 to 100% from the base model's price. Compared to consumer electronics such as the iPhone, a typical jump is from 25 to 40%. So why are we even remotely okay with paying double for an upgraded G-Shock? This is where audience conditioning comes in. The same pricing strategy can be seen with other luxury watch brands. The Omega Seamaster, for example, has a similar price jump from steel to titanium. If you want to get a two-tone, you're already paying double. The brand created a desirable aspect from the next model that's a higher tier than that of the base model. In the Seamaster's case, it's the material titanium or some gold. The audience, through the years, was conditioned to expect to pay for this amount to get the better model. G-Shock follows this same strategy but on a more affordable route. It adopts the collectability feature to justify the price jump while playing around with the consumer electronics price range. This kind of conditioning has proven to be very effective even if the consumer has an informed idea of the actual costs for the parts used to produce the product. This is why the modding scene is a lucrative side market. We'll come back to this later. The GM-B2100 is a very good example of this conditioning effect. This is more than 5 times the price of the base model. We have also proven in this channel that with a few mod parts from the aftermarket sellers, we can recreate one that is barely half the cost. Even have it done before the actual Full Metal Casioak got released. But we were conditioned already to expect many of these elements. We already expected that the price will be $500 like the other Full Metal models. We also expected it to have more inclusive parts such as the new case construction caseback. We knew that it was coming, so we had time to brace for the impact on our wallets. We were conditioned that it is the next level up. Knowing this, we can even predict the next logical step in the conditioning process. We will get the inevitable rare collaborations, we will get the titanium builds, and very likely the MRG model, which is a product of the latest conditioning process for the square in this case. The next component to this blueprint is the reactive resource management of G-Shock. G-Shock held its quarterly investors update and they released this online along with the projections for the later half of this year. Many interesting points were brought up in this document. On the timepiece segment, the metal and exterior parts of the manufacturer was greatly impacted by COVID-19. This accounted for the decline in sales and profit margin from 20 to 19%. That 1% accounts to about $20 million in lost revenue for the quarter and about $56 million for the year. With the projected decline, G-Shock looked to the previous year to see where the growth came from. They identified that the metal models continued its strong sales. The GA-2100 had massive expansion in the young demographic in Europe and US. And other Casio collections such as Oceanus, Edifice, and Sheen had a recovering trend. Using this data, Casio aggressively moved to promote other resources that they have that were not impacted by COVID-19. First, they expanded their brand sales to key demographics, namely youth, women, high-end consumers, and the health market. This explains the massive marketing push for these segments in the past year. Then they expanded their e-commerce platform using the My G-Shock service. This also boosted their credibility towards loyal fans and returning customers. Using market metrics, G-Shock quickly reacted against manufacturing issues in a matter of just a few months. And this is open for the public to see. The next component is the affordable modding scene. Going back to the GM-B2100, many people were not willing to buy one immediately. They, including me, saw that the modding scene is a viable alternative to the authentic one, at least for the time being. But while Rolex is actively combating the aftermarket world, G-Shock is yet to be seen jumping into the fight, and we may have actually know why. According to the fiscal report of 2022, G-Shock appeals to users of rival luxury watches and affluent consumers based on unparalleled craftsmanship. You don't have to own an MRG to notice this principle. After experiencing both authentic and aftermarket builds of G-Shock, Casio's quality is still better, at least in my opinion. This whole segment of the video is actually an expanded essay of a viewer comment. Mike reminded us that the inside structure of the full metal Casioak is completely different from the base models. This is part of the G-Shock conditioning. We expected that this model will not be a lazy installation of existing bracelets like many third-party aftermarket parts. It's also unlikely that these parts makers would manufacture all of these new parts and risk losing on their volatile profit margins. It's easy to understand that with every person out there modding their GA-2100s to appear like the full metal model, another would aspire to actually purchase the authentic one to get into the club of owners. This brings us to the final component: social media. More and more people are talking and sharing their G-Shock collections in the web and social media. I know for a fact that even our channel found its massive growth through G-Shock content. In 2018, we saw massive year-over-year growth from G-Shock as they pushed for aggressive expansion. The brand saw over 800% more engagement and 200% more click-through across all major platforms. G-Shock continued to ride this wave of exposure. You don't have to look at the statistics to see that there's a lot more G-Shock content now than ever before. All of this enforces to people's minds that G-Shock is affordable, collectible, and cool. This drives the curiosity for the next big collection, something that we watch enthusiasts experience with luxury watch collecting. I personally experienced how great it is to own these rare pieces and at the same time feel great for owning the base models. G-Shock knows this, and we're totally fine with it. G-Shock took a general bad year in production, identified the areas for growth, and executed their strategy in a matter of months. Now that we are a little bit more free to roam around and to get back to our buying power, G-Shock is ready to offer its killer lineup with its impending 40th anniversary celebration. They've got it all mapped out in their blueprint for upselling.